Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode, Cressy Landlord series for Ontario-based landlords. Today, we're going to continue our topic about basement apartments, and we're going to be speaking to it from the construction side of things. So today, we're going to be speaking with a gentleman I've known for many years, even before I was in real estate. He is a general contractor, owns his own business where they specialize in kitchens and bathrooms as well. Plumbing Mart, based out of Mississauga. Gentleman I'm speaking about, his name is Mark Noonan, a friend of mine and contractor that we use all the time here with the Cressy team. How you doing today, Mark? Welcome.
Kevin, good morning. Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Yeah, no, always good to talk to you. You've been helping me out for years, my clients for years, and especially with the guidance and the advice that comes from your expertise in the construction world. So as I was mentioning, we're going to get into the basement apartments today. It's becoming more and more popular as all the municipalities out there, they're looking for densification. They're looking for more housing opportunities. At the same time, we have that basement apartment that's being built for the family member, for someone to enjoy as well, helping maybe to an in-law suite or that. But we are going to talk about strictly for the landlord. So it's not a family member that's going to be living down there. We're going to talk about everything from the legal aspect of this. We want to create legal basement apartments. Okay, there's multiple reasons why we want to be in that. Value of your home and everything like that will increase more this way, in case down the road when you're going to sell the property, it'll figure itself out. So again, there's lots of illegal basement apartments out there. I'm not saying that all the basement apartments you're ever going to see, live in, or whatever are going to be legal, but that's how we're going to come at things today. And we're also going to have to talk at things from a general aspect, because again, we're talking to the landlords of Ontario, but you have to remember that in Ontario, there's Ontario law, there's municipal law, and we have to make sure that depending on the area we're working in, that everything is going to meet to their specific code and specifications. So let's bring in Mark right away, and let's start with the main one that we're talking about, and that's that permit, right? How you get started. You're going to need a permit to build your legal basement apartment. I'll let you go from there.
Kevin, that's exactly right. I mean, a project like this, they're pretty serious projects. We're taking our most prized asset, and we're basically turning it into an income property. And in order to do that, we want to make sure that we're covered. I know you got other people coming in to talk about their areas of it, but the construction part, it's pretty critical that we have a good relationship with the city, municipality, wherever we live, wherever the property is located. And we have to have permits. You know, we need to go through their guidance and guidelines. We need to build to the proper standards. And it's not only for tenant safety, it's for the safety of the owner of the house as well. We want to make sure that you're protected. So the first step is to find out what the municipal guidelines are. Each municipality will be a little bit different. And then in order to get your permit, you need to submit drawings. You need to submit certified drawings to the city that would include all aspects that they're looking for in that space to be renovated and comply with the bylaws in the building code. So you want to start with an architect and or a design firm, and there's a few of them out there that specialize strictly in basement design, where they know all the particulars. They're very efficient. They're very effective. They can design a great space, and they first shot cover all of the bases with respect to permits requirements for the bylaws. Those drawings then get submitted to the municipality. There is a waiting period while they go through them and approve them. Sometimes they're sent back to you for modification or review. You make those adjustments, resubmit. Once you get your permits, you're good to go. And, you know, you'll have to build to the content of those permits. But the good thing is once you've got the permits, you got a baseline. You know what you're doing. The scope of the project has been clearly defined, which means that anybody can understand that. At that point in time, you can put your project out for bids to 2 or 3 or, you know, whatever number of contractors you may want to engage with, based on research and recommendations that you've done. And they all have the exact same drawings. They're all comparing their quotes apple to apple, which is really the right way to go about any project. And, you know, put that out for 3 quotes. You're not necessarily going to pick the cheapest price, but through that process of meeting with each one of those contractors, those general contractors, going through the project, going through the drawings, listening to their thoughts, perspective and observations and solutions that they come up with are going to be critical. And by doing that, and by doing it with 2 or 3 different people, you're going to get a better spectrum, and you're going to come up with some new ideas, but you're also going to find out who you're comfortable with. And at the end of the day, it's the contractor that you're most comfortable with, that person, individual company, they're the ones you're going to want to move forward with.
No, of course, any relationship where you're taking on a project like this, having that back and forth, that comfort level, that ability to communicate, and the confidence that they're going to get a job done through definitely is way up there. So we have heating, ventilation, plumbing, right? You're also looking at different types of exits, fire code safety, and different things like that we have to make sure we're looking at. Why don't we start with the plumbing aspects there in the basement apartment? How is all that going to work? Like, I guess a lot of stuff's going to be roughed in, hopefully, if we're lucky. What if we have to then create this from scratch in maybe an older home, or what we have to do? How do we start with the plumbing?
Well, there's a couple of things there, Kevin, exactly with respect to that. Now, some new homes, you can't build basement apartments right away. Some municipalities want that house to be 5 years old. A lot of people may buy a new home and have the builder rough in plumbing in the basement, pre-construction. Don't waste your money on it. They charge you a significant amount of money to do that. It's never in the right location when you go to do your final build. It has to be dug up and relocated anyways. So just, buy your empty space, leave it as is. When you get ready to do this project and you've determined, and again, your designer will help you with this. We want to position our plumbing, which would be our kitchen, our bathroom, laundry room, things like that, in locations that make sense to keep costs down. We don't want to be running halfway across the basement with a bunch of, pipes and plumbings and venting and all that when it's not necessary. So we want to design with some common sense and logic for economies. So we design those to be, fairly close to our stacks and our drain points and things like that. And so, yes, so the requirements for a basement apartment are going to be, we need a full bathroom. That's going to include either a tub and or shower. You need a sink, vanity with faucet, and you need a toilet. That is a requirement. You can't have anything less than that in a full completed bathroom. The kitchen will also have to have a sink and a faucet. That is mandatory. All that has to be vented, drained, and supplied. And then the other thing that you're going to need to have is, when it comes to laundry, the tenants will need access either to an independent or a shared laundry room in the space that they have access to.
Yeah, we always try to, when we're looking with our tenants, when we're looking at properties that are going to be able to be switched over to that income property, laundry is a big one that we always discuss. How are we going to have the property? Because if you can somehow figure it out so you can get laundry up and laundry down so you don't have to deal with any type of shared situation, it's always best for sure. But when you get when you get stuck with size and different parameters that you're going to need, sometimes it's not worth it to have that secondary laundry, and then you just figure out a schedule. You do Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and you do the other days, right? So you can have that different separation for laundry schedule so that you're not having your tenants bump into one another. You also have then issues with utilities and stuff like that we have to get into, how they're going to be separated and everything when you have shared laundry situation. There are still some that have no laundry at all and they have to go off-site, which again, you're going to have different rental implications that way as well. A lot of people this day and age are definitely looking
You can't go off-site with a basement apartment. It's a bylaw requirement. You have to have laundry on site.
Interesting.
They need access. They need access to laundry, either shared or independent.
That is something I did not know. See, there we go. Always learning when we do things. Folks, it's not just for you guys out there. I actually learn all the time talking to our experts as well as things come up. I always say you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And that's why it's very important to build yourself around the best team possible to make sure that your experts, your professionals that you're working with understand what their profession is completely, and especially when you're doing something like this. So thanks, Mark. That's awesome.
No, just on that note, Kevin, there's a bit of an easy way to handle that nowadays as well. We think conventional laundry room roughed in with 220 voltage for our dryer, venting, all these kinds of things. And whenever you do venting outside of a basement, you're usually drilling through block or foundation of some kind. So it can be expensive. But nowadays, our appliances offer an all-in-one washing, drying machine. LG and a few of the companies make some beautiful equipment. Everything's done in one machine. It takes a longer time period to do the cycle, but there's no venting required. It's a 125 or 115 volt plug-in, and you just need a typical inch and a half drain to exhaust the water. And so they're very simple to rough in. They're very simple to install. They don't take up a lot of space, and they can even be incorporated in a kitchen as an example. So there are some pretty cost-effective solutions nowadays.
I have seen the 2-in-1s. They are becoming more popular. My wife knows more about the laundry machines in our house than other houses. I do. I'm very lucky for that. But I do know how to work ours. I do know people that don't even know how to work them, or at least they say so. So, okay, that's great for all the plumbing and stuff like that. Like, the big one, I think another one that we come across a lot is exits, fire safety, stuff like that. How do we make sure, obviously fireproofing drywall has to be put in between the two units, whether they're up and down or side by side. Well, it's a basement apartment, so it's definitely up and down that we're looking here to separate that. But let's talk about some exits, some fire safety, and things like that we have to worry about.
Okay, so every basement apartment needs its own independent exit from the property to the exterior, and that can be like on a side split or back split. We're all quite familiar with that side entrance to the house where there's a couple of stairs to go up, but then the rest of the stairs go down to the basement. That space is perfect. That can be utilized as the independent entry exit point to the tenanted space. The door at the top can be locked if need be, so that we can't enter their space. They can use that as an emergency exit for themselves, but we're good to go there. Now, if you don't have that, you're not allowed to have a rental unit where the tenant would walk through the common space of the homeowner and then down the stairs into the apartment. That is not allowed. So you need to have another form of exterior entry. It cannot be at the side of the house, and it cannot be at the front of the house. It has to be at the back of the house, and it has to be set back at least 1.2 meters from any property line. Now, that can add a little bit of cost to any renovation, because you've got to dig down, you've got to form it, you got to cement it, you got to drain it. There's a lot that goes into that. That could add $15,000 or $20,000 for the cost of a renovation, but it might be necessary. And then the question is, do we have to put a roof over top of it? Do we have to weatherproof it? And again, that'll come up during the design process, and your designer will put the right access points into the drawing. Now, with that said, once you're in the space and you've got access through that independent stairwell, you also need egress, on that same topic. And, you will need a certain size window in your bedrooms, and then in the common area. In the bedroom, it's got to be a minimum 5%, I believe it is, of the overall floor space. It has to be able to open 3.77 feet unobstructed. So you need a window that opens basically into a large window well that somebody could crawl out of the big, step into it from the basement, stand up, and get away from the home in the event of an emergency. And so you'll need those egress windows in the bedrooms. And then in the rest of the space, you'll need larger windows that represent about 2.5% of that shared space in the common area, whatever that might be. And, so you'll need enough glass to represent 2.5% of the overall square footage. So if you've got 1,000, square feet, you need, 25 square feet of windows, in that space, to bring the light in. And then the egress is 5% in the bedrooms. And then each individual bedroom must have an egress window.
Simply put, you have to have a wave that myself at my size at 6'3" and 280 pounds can get out that window, and as well as grandma being able to get out that window as well, through access and be able to climb that ladder. We were talking at the beginning about permits and different types of inspections and everything that you're going to have to come in, right? So you're going to have the ESA certificate and different inspections, I guess, coming along the way. Do you want to speak to maybe about that process, to how that goes through, whether it's...
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. So when you pull a building permit, there's going to be multiple aspects to the building permit. You're likely going to have a framing inspection, an insulation inspection, electrical inspection, of course, which your electrician will take care of. But, as part of your overall building permit, but he's responsible for inspections, same as your electrician. There will be an electrical permit that he'll pull as part of your building permit. He'll be entitled to that, and he'll get that inspection done. And you're going to, of course, that you need an HVAC inspection. So whatever you're going to do in the way of, accommodating HVAC with new venting and things like that. And then you'll have a final inspection, which will be the last one. When you're all done and wrapped up, you'll get the building department to come back and they'll sign off on the permit. That closes your permit. You'll get your occupancy permit after that, then you'll be good to go. But there is a process to that. It's very straightforward nowadays. Every municipality has a website. You just go on, you log on, you type in what you need. You get feedback when they're coming. They come, they show up, they're in and out. If there's no deficiencies, it's a fairly quick process. It's very efficient. There's not a lot of waiting these days with respect to that. You can wait a long time to get the original permit, but once things are in process, the inspections themselves roll out very comfortably.
Heating and electrical in the basement. Again, we talked a little bit about the shared utilities and where we are there. Obviously, in a perfect world, if we can separately meter these units, it'll help classify them more as a duplex more and more. But there are definitely basement situations where they have that shared utility. So if we were looking at heating and electrical down there, how would you say we best need to set that up so that we're looking at efficiency, one, right? down in the basement, you are a little bit colder normally.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. I mean, most conventional homes are built in such a way that we've got an HVAC system in the house with typically a propane or natural gas fired furnace, and it heats the entire space. Trying to create zones with dampers and different motor controls and all that to isolate those spaces to be different. It's really hard on the equipment, and the equipment's not really set up for that. So we've got to work with what we've got, and bringing in second furnaces and second hot water tanks and all these things is very cost prohibitive. So what the bylaw typically requires us to do is to make sure to guarantee that the basement space is always at a minimum of 22 degrees Celsius, which is I think 72 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. We want to make sure it's comfortable space. So, because we know that the basement is going to be a little bit colder. So it's got to be kept at 72 degrees. Now, because basements are colder, that could mean in order to get that temperature achieved, you might be set to 75 upstairs and might find that too hot, too uncomfortable. So the best way around that, Kevin, is just really good insulation. Do a great job insulating that space during construction. Do a full insulation draw on the perimeter walls. Insulate the floor with some kind of decoupling membrane, like a dry core or something like that, with an insulation on top. Use a flooring material that's going to give insulative properties, and then also insulate the space between the basement and upstairs. And that serves two benefits. Not only does you get the insulation value, but you also get sound reduction. So if you do things like that, you insulate properly, vapor barrier properly, enclose the space, stop the drafts, you'll find it's going to be a lot easier to maintain that temperature. And there'll be more balance between the upstairs and downstairs with respect to that.
Yeah. Two different families or two different tenants, let's just say, they're always going to have different levels of comfortableness, right? Like even in my own household, my wife tends to want it warmer than I would like it. That might be because I have more insulation personally than she does as well. But
we can all relate to that.
But that balance between up and down, as we're saying, like there's different tricks as well, so that the tenants aren't battling. We've had a couple of properties where we've been able to install a device that we can monitor then from our phones now with the way technology is as well. So that way we are the ones to adjust it, and it's just in a locked case inside the upper unit. So that way we're the ones monitoring the control, and you don't have the tenants fighting back and forth with what's going on. And we try to make sure that we have that balanced. But that's one of the problems you're going to come into when you start dealing with multifamily properties, whether you are the family up and you're just renting down, or if you're renting out this property to two different people and you're an off-site landlord.
No doubt, there's always compromises in shared space.
Yeah, has to be. There has to be on so many levels. And again, that's just one of the things that when multifamily gets into that, you have to always make sure is lining up is that the tenants, they're going to be able to get along. They're going to be able to enjoy each other's space because the battling amongst one another can sometimes cause a lot of problems. We've covered a lot here today, I think, in the different types of construction for the basement apartments. I don't know, Mark, if there's anything else that you wanted to hit on or make sure that
there are a couple of quick, interesting points, Kevin. And one of the things that we want to bear in mind is ceiling height. We need certain clearances in basements. People forget about this. Some of our older, shorter basements will not accommodate tenanted space. You need a minimum of 6 foot 10 inches and 3/4 over 75% of the area in order for that to be licensed to comply. You cannot go below 6 foot 4 3/4 inches where there's bulkheads and things like that. So you got to have that much clearance underneath those areas. Fires and safety. We require fire-rated drywall, fire-rated doors. We need a low burn time. We need like 20 minutes on doors, 30 minutes on the space. So again, that goes back to insulation and drywall. We use fire-rated products to slow any burn time down, to give everybody time to escape, to be safe. And tied into that, we need smoke alarms, which are tied into the entire house. All the smoke alarms need to be hardwired, and they need to be daisy chained together. If the alarm upstairs goes, the one downstairs goes, everybody leaves the property. Carbon monoxide detectors need to be in the bedrooms. Okay, that's another critical thing, because downstairs we've often got the natural gas coming in at a point there, and we want to make sure that space is covered. So it's a good idea to have one of those in the utility room, but you definitely have to have one in each and every one of the bedrooms. So that's an important point as well. We want to also make sure that before you get into all this and start running down a rabbit hole, Kevin, that we've checked our zoning. Make sure that our zoning allows for this. A couple things to think about that too are some homes fall within what we call floodplain areas now. And those have been clearly defined with some of the weather events that we've had over the last few years. You will not get a basement apartment in a floodplain area. Okay, it's not going to happen. Another thing on plumbing we need to go back and touch upon is that we need to have in the floor there, we need to have a backflow preventing system on the main drains coming into the house, so there's no sewer backups. That's got to be installed, and that is a requirement in almost every municipality now. It's a fairly extensive thing that can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000, depending on the situation and the layout of the house. The unit, of course, has to be registered. We want to make sure that you don't just get a permit. You must register it as tenanted space as well when you go through this process of your paperwork. The house must be at least 5 years old to be able to apply for this. The rental unit, it also must be smaller than the main house. You cannot build a bigger rental space downstairs than the available homeowner space upstairs. Even if the basement was bigger, you cannot assign more square footage to it than what's available upstairs. Parking is another thing to think about. You need at least one assigned parking spot. Okay, that's very, very critical. Another good thing to do is a fire inspection. You want to make sure that you can have a fire inspection done so that you're cleared on that. And any tenant that comes in, you want to make sure that you provide them with proof of legality on your unit. You want to be able to show them that, when they sign their lease, part of your package, we went through all of these building requirements and we've got the right permits, so that they're confident and that they know your situation, just so there's no issues down the road should something arise and they want to somewhat be critical perhaps of what you've done. You've got yourself already predisposed on that. So those are just some of the things. These are fun and exciting projects, Kevin. As you talked about, I mean, we've got a need for housing these days. People with empty basements who aren't utilizing them. What a great income opportunity, and so it's getting exciting. We have a lot more requests these days. As you know, the reason we're talking about this is because we're doing more of it. And I think it's a great path to go down. I mean, turn your property into a rental property, pay your mortgage, or have someone else pay your mortgage. And this is exciting times for us.
Yeah, I agree. The supplementing of the income, there are different grants out there that are available as well that we can get into, and just different things that we can help make sure that you're doing this the most financially beneficially for yourself, whether that's, and we're going to get into finances with somebody else about how we can pull different monies out and what it's going to be and how we're going to be able to benefit ourselves by supplementing our mortgage on a different episode. But Mark, with the construction, I thank you so much for joining us today, for being able to insight to everybody with your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise. And I look forward to when we talk again. Thanks so much for doing this.
Kevin, as always, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Please remember, while we are professionals, this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The advice shared may not apply to your unique situation. Always seek personalized advice from a qualified professional before making any investment decisions.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're finding it informative and useful, make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend so that we can keep getting the information out there to Ontario landlords. And keep on joining us. We'll see you next time.